For generations, the global public has stood transfixed by medical curiosities, often assuming these jaw-dropping marvels were merely the product of Hollywood special effects or clever digital manipulation. But as a storytelling director, I must compel you to tear off the skeptical mask. Behind the viral internet clips and the astonishing Guinness World Record certificates lies a collection of true, unfiltered human journeys. The terrifying reality is that carrying an exceptional body builds an invisible wall of endless physical challenges and unrelenting public scrutiny. Far from being mere entertainment commodities, these icons navigate a volatile environment where a simple trip to the grocery store or a high society banquet can instantly trigger a chaotic, earth-shattering sudden drop into public spectacle or hilarious logistical gridlock. They endure the raw agony of physical limitations and the harsh, toxic sting of social alienation. Yet they choose to weaponize their unique forms into an elite survival strategy of absolute confidence and financial dominance. The systemic blade of public prejudice tries to reduce them to a punchline, but their unrelenting spirit leaves an unfillable void in the minds of anyone who dares to watch. Brace yourselves as we open the archives on 17 Black individuals who completely defied the laws of nature. Mikel Raffanelli. Look closely through the heavy, reinforced plastic wheels of a standard supermarket shopping cart, buckling and groaning under immense structural strain. This inanimate object serves as a daily witness to the golden illusion of effortless movement shattered entirely whenever Mikel Raffanelli steps into a public space. To the casual observer on social media, she is an unmistakable icon, a model of absolute confidence boasting a jaw-dropping, 8-foot-wide hip span that leaves anyone who sees her in total disbelief. But the shopping cart registers the brutal, physical reality of her navigation. It feels the volatile environment of tight spaces as her massive hips turn a routine summer grocery run into a chaotic battle with narrow, commercial aisles. The metal frame shakes as every eye in the store glues to her every move, watching her small, soft waist transition into a structural masterpiece that breaks the boundaries of normal architecture. The calorie storm. The systemic blade of public scrutiny strikes with absolute malice whenever she attempts a simple task, like reaching for a water bottle, turning the store into an arena of embarrassing stares and mixed pity. Mikel admits that carrying this exceptional body can easily degenerate into a living nightmare. During her pregnancies, her physical form suffered a massive, sudden expansion as she threw a literal calorie storm into her system, consuming 5,000 calories a day, including entire roasted chickens and heavy pasta dishes smothered in cheese, causing her hips to expand aggressively every single day. This sudden drop into hyperproportionality transformed her private life into brutal tabloid fodder and a breeding ground for toxic online cruelty. Strangers unleash endless, degrading jokes across her comments, vulgarly speculating that her husband would face a physical death sentence of suffocation if she ever sat on his face. Yet, maintaining an unyielding personal space, she fiercely ignores the teasing to protect her peace, leaving an unfillable void where the internet's malice can never reach. Grand P. Look directly at the haunting image of a grown man standing inside a lavish celebrity banquet hall, wearing an expensive black designer suit with a collar so impossibly wide it could effortlessly fit a motorcycle helmet. All eyes lock onto this bizarre silhouette, not to admire the luxury, but because the jacket continuously snags on surrounding dining chairs, causing the entire high society crowd to erupt into mocking laughter. This humiliating public spectacle stands in brutal contrast to the golden illusion of international fame surrounding the Guinean artist known globally as Grand P. Born Musa Sandayana Kaba, he is a musical and political phenomenon who captured the world's attention. But behind that forgiving spotlight lies a harsh, biological sentence. He lives with progeria, a rare, relentless genetic condition that forces his fragile body to age at a catastrophic rate, trapping an adult soul inside a tiny, weathered frame. The love revolution. The systemic blade of public prejudice triggered a devastating sudden drop the exact moment he announced his romantic relationship with the voluptuous Ivorian model, Eudoxie Yao. The internet instantly transformed their personal lives into toxic tabloid fodder, unleashing a wave of cruel speculation, mocking their physical contrast, and accusing her of calculated financial motives. Yet, inside this volatile environment of global mockery, Grand P weaponized an unmatched, elite sense of confidence. He refused to allow the public disgrace to shatter his spirit. Instead, he laughed, clapped, and treated the systemic onslaught as a mere backdrop to his success. Their bond became a profound love revolution, breaking down invisible walls of societal judgment and proving his willpower could conquer any merciless foe. He survived the chaos, but the exhausting battle to prove his humanity left an unfillable void, reminding the world of the raw agony hidden behind a child-sized icon. Millie and Christine McCoy. You stand frozen amidst a stunned 19th-century theater crowd, watching two distinct African-American women walk onto a brilliant stage, sharing a single, fused lower body. They are wrapped in the golden illusion of the two-headed nightingale, an irreplaceable musical act commanding the forgiving spotlight across Victorian Europe and America. As you listen, each sister controls a different part of a song from her own head, blending their voices into a flawless, majestic harmony that leaves the audience in total disbelief. They mastered 5 languages, transforming their physical anomaly into a monument of high society prestige. Yet, as a witness behind the velvet curtains, you can feel the crushing weight of their invisible walls. Their synchronized, breathtaking performance stands in brutal, heartbreaking contrast to the internal boundaries of a life where privacy was a total impossibility, locking them in a volatile environment of endless physical entrapment. The culinary wars. The systemic blade of their shared biology triggered a chaotic sudden drop during private hours, manifesting in ridiculous domestic friction. The jar of an unblinking mirror watched as Millie craved chocolate mousse while Christine desperately wanted spicy spaghetti, causing their single frame to yank in opposite directions as they fought for control over their body. They shouted in frustration, enduring a unique raw agony where a simple meal degenerated into a territorial battlefield. Out on the streets, pedestrians stared at them like monsters in a horror movie, forcing them to squeeze through narrow spaces with immense difficulty. They maintained an elite survival strategy of humor and grace, but the constant media scrutiny turned their existence into permanent tabloid fodder. They lived independently yet permanently bound, until their lives ended just 12 hours apart, leaving an unfillable void where two souls had fought an entire lifetime to coexist. Zion Clark. Witness how the relentless, hypermasculine framework of competitive sports operates as a systemic blade, forcing a severely disadvantaged athlete to completely reinvent the rules of physical combat just to be seen as a human being. Born in Columbus, Ohio, Zion Clark was abandoned by the traditional safety nets of life, entering the world with a rare genetic condition that left him entirely without a lower body. To the mainstream media, he eventually became wrapped in the golden illusion of an overnight wrestling sensation and an elite track athlete, a flawless monument of pure willpower dominating beneath dazzling stage lights. But the corporate sports machine builds invisible walls of isolation around a disabled competitor from the absolute beginning. He wasn't given a specialized category. He was thrust directly into the brutal, unforgiving arena against fully bodied athletes who viewed his unique form not as an inspiration, but as an easy target for commercial domination. The wheelchair turntable. This silent predator of logistical exclusion triggered a frustrating, earth-shattering sudden drop during his ordinary daily routines outside the ring. The public eye watched with cold detachment as a simple trip to a grocery store degenerated into a humiliating spectacle. When a jar of seasoning slipped from his fingers, his lack of a lower body prevented him from bending over normally. He was forced into a volatile environment of public embarrassment, spinning his wheelchair around like a turntable just to reach the floor, while a thoughtless crowd erupted into mocking laughter around him. Zion chose to weaponize an elite survival strategy of humor and immense upper body power to laugh along with the crowd, but every public mishap was quickly digested into permanent tabloid fodder. He endured the raw agony of conquering opponents by diving with his bare hands, pushing his torso to the absolute limit to escape the invisible walls of pity. Though he earned global admiration, the exhausting battle against systemic doubt left an unfillable void where basic human empathy should have protected him. Norma Stitz. Moda. The forensics study the heavy, reinforced steel struts of an oversized, custom-engineered bra lying across an Atlanta bedroom floor, its fabric stretched to its absolute structural limit. That massive garment belongs to Annie Hawkins Turner, who once stood wrapped in the golden illusion of global fame as a unique internet icon. But beneath the dazzling stage lights of her adult success lay a dark parallel universe of childhood trauma. Since the tender age of 9, the unblinking eye of the mirror watched her body suffer a freakish, unstoppable development that transformed her into a helpless target for brutal schoolyard bullying. The invisible walls of isolation closed in tightly around her when, during a crowded birthday party, her sheer physical weight caused an entire dining table to collapse loudly to the ground, triggering an arena of mocking laughter that left her young soul deeply scarred by a profound public disgrace. The gold mine of flesh. The systemic blade of public exploitation triggered an earth-shattering sudden drop when she decided to weaponize her 60-kilogram, 1.4-meter-long chest into an elite financial survival strategy. She launched a private website, instantly attracting a massive, fanatical global following that generated over $1 million in rapid revenue, turning her physical abnormality into a highly profitable corporate industry. Yet, this mountain of cash could not buy her an escape from a volatile environment of constant physical torment. She endures the raw agony of a severely deformed spine and shoulders, a medical paradox where she is entirely unable to drive a car normally, sleep flat on her back, or descend a simple flight of stairs without fearing a fatal fall. Refusing surgical reduction to protect her lucrative gold mine, she left her daily reality trapped in permanent tabloid fodder, surviving in an unfillable void where her body remains both a financial empire and a lifelong cage. Chanel L. Tapper. Look past the polished, brilliantly lit screen of a viral Instagram video, where Houston native Chanel Tapper stands wrapped in the golden illusion of a modern internet sensation, boasting an official Guinness World Record for the world's longest tongue, measuring a jaw-dropping 9.75 centimeters. She radiates an aura of playful, unbothered confidence. But as a storytelling director, I must compel you to tear off this glossy digital mask, because behind the millions of likes and shares lies an invisible enemy of deep-seated isolation that began in her childhood. At just 8 years old, while dressed as a vampire for Halloween, she discovered her biological anomaly when her tongue stretched uncontrollably past her canine teeth. The public thought they knew their overnight idol, but her reality was a dark parallel universe where cruel schoolyard taunts labeling her a snake left a heavy psychological ghost in her young mind. The digital vultures. The systemic blade of internet culture shattered her peace entirely when her record-breaking feature set the social media world on fire. The sudden drop from innocent self-expression to global visibility plunged her into a volatile environment of provocative exploitation. Strangers, particularly hordes of men online, weaponized the comment sections into permanent tabloid fodder, inundating her platform with highly suggestive, vulgar remarks hinting at how her body could be used for their pleasure. Chanel chose an elite survival strategy, responding firmly to dismantle the disrespect and protect her dignity, but the relentless hypersexualization inflicted a profound sense of raw agony. She conquered the algorithms to become a symbol of body positivity, yet the toxic ordeal left an unfillable void, proving how ruthlessly the digital crowd tries to turn a black woman's unique identity into a commodified punchline. Anna Williams. Track the cruel progression of an exceptional legacy by measuring the extreme physical constraints of a single metric. 20 long years of meticulous cultivation to grow 10 fingernails to a staggering total length of over 180 inches, nearly 4.5 meters of solid keratin. This cold, monumental figure belonged to Ayanna Williams, who stood wrapped in the golden illusion of global fame after her official recognition in the 2018 Guinness World Records. But behind that pristine, record-breaking halo lay a mathematical prison that dictated her every waking hour. Every single morning, the simple math of daily survival transformed her world into an obstacle course, turning routine movements into an intense, exhausting battle against her own prized possessions. The numbers didn't just measure her glory. They calculated the precise shrinkage of her personal freedom, locking her behind invisible walls of severe physical limitation. The restroom battle. The systemic blade of public curiosity triggered a sharp sudden drop from global prestige to raw, undignified frustration during her ordinary daily routines. The unblinking eyes of onlookers at a local coffee shop watched as her 4.5-meter fingers failed to reach a simple cup, causing a clumsy wave that sent hot liquid spilling everywhere while the crowd erupted into mocking laughter. Her private reality degenerated into a volatile environment of constant anxiety. Pulling up her pants or balancing her massive nails while sitting on a toilet became an endless, excruciating restroom battle where her fingers tangled like a chaotic puzzle. She endured the raw agony of this lifestyle until, unable to tolerate the cumbersome cage any longer, she made the heart-wrenching decision to completely cut them off in 2021. Though her severed nails were encased as a museum display at Ripley's, the traumatic sacrifice left an unfillable void, turning her legendary identity into permanent tabloid fodder. Jalisha Nightingale looked directly at the piercing, otherworldly glare of a high-fashion model dominating a global advertising campaign, her face frozen in an expression of absolute, cold defiance. All eyes in the fashion industry lock onto her silhouette, completely spellbound by a pair of natural, striking blue eyes that seemed to pierce right through the camera lens. This triumphant pinnacle of artistic validation stands in brutal, heartbreaking contrast to the dark parallel universe of her childhood in Barbados, where those exact same eyes were treated as a freakish curse. Before she ever stepped into the golden illusion of the modeling world, the very community that should have protected her locked her behind invisible walls of cruel alienation. They weaponized her unique genetic gift into a source of public disgrace, hurling daggers of rejection that deeply scarred her tender heart before she even knew her own worth. The hex of the neighborhood. The systemic blade of colorism and deep-seated prejudice triggered a slow, agonizing sudden drop during her early years, transforming her neighborhood into a volatile environment of isolation. Cruel children and superstitious onlookers relentlessly taunted her, labeling her rare, natural blue eyes as monstrous anomalies and whispering that she carried a dark hex that allowed her to see the whole world's sins within her gaze. She endured the raw agony of being rejected repeatedly at casting calls as an adult, facing a blind industry that initially viewed her striking contrast as an unsettling defect rather than an elite masterpiece. But inside that abyss of systemic doubt, Jalisha weaponized her differences into an irreplaceable survival strategy, enduring the doors slammed in her face until a luthier of style, a famous photographer, saw her authentic light. She conquered the runways to turn her genetic legacy into a fierce symbol of pride. Yet the exhausting journey left an unfillable void, proving the immense pain of surviving a world that fears anything it cannot easily categorize. Asha Zulu Mandela. Descend into the heavy, claustrophobic corridors of a woman's mind, where an exceptional physical crown became a source of constant psychological weight and structural terror. To the mainstream entertainment public, Asha Zulu Mandela stood wrapped in the golden illusion of a unique, irreplaceable icon. Boasting an official record for a jaw-dropping head of dreadlocks measuring a staggering 33.5 meters long, she was celebrated as a natural masterpiece under the forgiving spotlight of global curiosity. But behind that pristine, record-breaking halo lay an invisible enemy of intense, daily anxiety. Since her youth, her own family opposed her choice, planting a silent predator of doubt in her mind by constantly asking if she intended to carry this burden forever. The unblinking mirror watched as her identity became completely bound to an extension of her body that was growing aggressively heavier every single day, turning her sanctuary into a volatile environment of isolation. The bicycle entanglement. The systemic blade of public scrutiny triggered a frantic sudden drop from global prestige to raw, chaotic panic during an ordinary walk in a crowded downtown area. The illusion of control vanished instantly when a sudden gust of wind violently whipped her massive, heavy hair across a pavement, snagging it tightly into the handle of a coffee shop door before entangling it deeply within the metallic gears of a passing bicycle. Stranded in total isolation, she endured the raw agony of becoming an instant public spectacle, forced to listen to a child mockingly exclaim, "What's that huge rug?" while a frantic employee rushed toward her with a pair of scissors. Asha chose an elite survival strategy of sharp, defensive humor to protect her dignity, refusing the blade and carefully untangling her identity from the wheels. She weaponized her unique form into a successful natural hair care brand. But the exhausting physical strain left an unfillable void, leaving her reality forever trapped in permanent tabloid fodder. Nayakim Gatwech. Step right onto the brilliantly lit, hyper-luxurious stage of an elite fashion event in Tokyo, where Nayakim Gatwech stands wrapped in the golden illusion of global cultural supremacy. Universally hailed as the Queen of Darkness, her pitch-black, breathtakingly shiny skin radiates like a polished diamond beneath dazzling stage lights, leaving the entire international fashion crowd in absolute awe. She reached a monumental peak of artistic prestige, celebrated as a flawless monument of black pride and systemic defiance. Yet, this spectacular zenith of mainstream validation stands in brutal, heartbreaking contrast to a dark parallel universe of technical erasure and corporate alienation happening behind the camera lens. The very industry that exploits her deep, authentic complexion to sell luxury goods treats her unique form as a structural complication, locking her behind invisible walls of professional negligence. The Tokyo Blackout. The systemic blade of technical bias and unchecked industry ignorance triggered a chaotic, earth-shattering sudden drop during a high-stakes promotional shoot. When the venue's lights suddenly dimmed, her exceptional skin caused her to completely disappear into the background shadows, plunging the panicked crew into a volatile environment of logistical confusion where they literally could not find their own star. The unblinking lenses failed her entirely. The media team had to halt production, aggressively flashing harsh lights from different angles just to rescue her face from an unbelievable technical void. She endured the raw agony of being treated like an invisible specter rather than an elite professional, her reality constantly digested into permanent tabloid fodder. Nayakim chose an elite survival strategy of sharp, self-deprecating humor to disarm the room, but the exhausting battle to remain visible in a white-dominated framework left an unfillable void, proving the immense pain behind her crown. Wildine Almowith. Study the custom-welded metal footrests of a heavily modified miniature wheelchair resting against the base of a towering studio doorframe, its scaled-down frame showing deep scuffs from a relentless struggle for entry. Those customized gears belong to Wildine Almo, who stands wrapped in the golden illusion of the fashion world as an unprecedented, historical pioneer. Measuring a modest height of only 72 centimeters, she completely amazed the global industry by cementing her legacy as the shortest professional model on the planet. But beneath the dazzling stage lights of her historic runway debuts lay a dark parallel universe of extreme architectural exclusion. The unblinking eye of the camera captured the precise moment her grand illusion shattered. Her tiny wheelchair became aggressively wedged on a thick studio doormat, completely blocking her from entering an important photo shoot and locking her behind invisible walls of physical gridlock. The Giant's Wardrobe. The systemic blade of a world built exclusively for giants triggered a frustrating, daily sudden drop during her high-stakes wardrobe fittings. She was thrust into a volatile environment of professional alienation where every standard designer outfit was impossibly long, and every shoe was absurdly massive, remaining entirely unwearable even after undergoing extreme structural alterations by the styling crew. Wildine chose an elite survival strategy, weaponizing a witty, intensely optimistic personality to disarm the room by loudly joking, "This is fashion for giants," transforming a humiliating technical barrier into a moment of pure triumph. She endured the raw agony of navigating an industry that completely ignored her proportions, forcing designers to build entirely new concepts to fit her frame. She conquered the towering studio lights to remain a brilliant symbol of resilience, but the endless physical compromise left an unfillable void, leaving her reality forever digested into permanent tabloid fodder. Sulemana Abdul Samed. Track the grueling arithmetic of a towering existence by measuring the extreme spatial constraints of a single monumental human frame. A staggering height of 7 feet 4 inches, and relentless growth trajectory driven by gigantism, and a body weight that places a crushing, unyielding stress on human joints. This massive biological blueprint belongs to Sulemana Abdul Samed, who stands wrapped in the golden illusion of an overnight internet sensation, drawing a forgiving spotlight and endless public curiosity wherever he walks. But behind that viral, record-shattering aura lies a mathematical prison that turns every ordinary room into a physical trap. The numbers don't just quantify his rare internet fame. They calculate the precise shrinkage of his physical freedom, transforming a standard hotel doorway or a commercial bathroom into a claustrophobic barrier that severely locks his real identity behind invisible walls of logistical exclusion. The Battle of the Ceiling. The systemic blade of architectural neglect triggered a sharp sudden drop from global novelty to raw, undignified frustration during an ordinary business trip. The unblinking eyes of onlookers at a local restaurant watched as his massive shoulders aggressively brushed against the low ceiling, forcing his body into a volatile environment of public spectacle where standard dining chairs weren't wide enough to hold his frame. His private reality degenerated into a medical paradox. He endures the raw agony of chronic joint pain that frequently leaves him entirely immobile, requiring him to use a small chair inside a hotel shower just to perform basic hygiene because he cannot fit into a standard bathtub. He nurtures an elite survival strategy of optimism, dreaming of corrective surgery while weaponizing a positive spirit to navigate a world built for smaller men. But his daily ordeal is constantly digested into permanent tabloid fodder. He survives the exhausting physical strain, but the lack of structural accommodation leaves an unfillable void. Prince Randian. Look down at the cold, hard wood of a crowded New York stage floor, where a single stick of graphite pencil suddenly slips from a man's lips, rolling completely out of reach. The packed auditorium erupts into a mixture of gasps and mocking whispers as the performer frantically twists his neck in a fierce, exhausting battle against gravity just to retrieve his tool. This humiliating public struggle stood in brutal, heartbreaking contrast to the late 19th century, when Prince Randian stood wrapped in the golden illusion of international showmanship. Globally celebrated as the Worm Man, he achieved an irreplaceable pinnacle of stage prestige, leaving audiences astonished by his brilliant artistic talents. But beneath the dazzling stage lights of P.T. Barnum's legendary exhibitions lay a dark parallel universe of severe anatomical exclusion, where a man born entirely without arms and legs was forced to transform his own physical limitations into a highly commodified public spectacle. The tongue-rolled cigarette. The systemic blade of ableist exploitation triggered an earth-shattering sudden drop behind the theater curtains, forcing him into a volatile environment where basic human dignity had to be continuously bought through unbelievable physical feats. To escape the invisible walls of pity and avoid being discarded as a helpless medical curiosity, Randian weaponized an elite survival strategy of sharp wit and flawless oral dexterity. The unblinking eyes of the crowd watched in absolute awe as he sat in total isolation, using nothing but his tongue, teeth, and lips to perfectly roll and light a tobacco cigarette right before their eyes, defiantly declaring, "This pencil is ruining my vibe," whenever a prop failed him. He endured the raw agony of an industry that viewed his body as a freakish anomaly, turning his daily existence into permanent tabloid fodder for the elite. He conquered the boundaries of his condition to secure financial independence, yet his reality left an unfillable void where a standard human life had been completely sacrificed for the amusement of a world that refused to see his true humanity. Willie Murphy. You stand frozen inside the pitch-black hallway of a quiet Rochester home, listening to the sudden, terrifying sound of a heavy wooden door creaking open. A shadow slips through the fractured frame, an intruder expecting to easily overpower a frail, helpless elderly woman in the dark. But as a witness standing in that chilling silence, you feel the golden illusion of her vulnerability vanish instantly. The unblinking darkness conceals a true warrior, 82-year-old Willie Murphy, an elite powerlifter who spent decades forging her body beneath the iron weights of a gym. Instead of cowering behind invisible walls of fear, she steps into the room like a hunting lion. Her eyes blaze with an intense fire as her muscular, hyper-conditioned frame charges directly toward the threat, transforming her private sanctuary into a volatile environment of total retribution. The vice grip of the matriarch. The systemic blade of ageist assumptions suffered an earth-shattering sudden drop for the predator in a matter of seconds. With an explosive burst of raw power, she grabs the intruder, pinning his body to the floor and squeezing his hand like an unbreakable steel vise. He is thrown aside like a ragdoll, completely helpless as she smashes him into submission and chokes out his ability to breathe. He begs for mercy, but the legendary matriarch shows absolutely none. When the police arrive, they stand in total disbelief, gazing at an unconscious criminal sprawled across the floor. She endured the raw agony of public skepticism throughout her life for lifting heavy weights as an older black woman, her story quickly becoming permanent tabloid fodder. But by executing a flawless strategy of self-defense, she smashed the stereotypes of old age, leaving an unfillable void where vulnerability once lived. Troy James. Consider how a single, fundamental genetic mutation within a human's connective tissues can rewrite an entire destiny, turning a rare medical condition into a bizarre ticket to Hollywood fame. This profound reality belonged to Canadian contortionist Troy James, a man born wrapped in the golden illusion of a modern special effects marvel. He lives with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS, a biological anomaly that renders his connective tissues superflexible, allowing him to bend his frame nearly 360 degrees. To the global public watching beneath dazzling stage lights, he is an irreplaceable asset in the horror and sci-fi industry, transforming his hyperflexibility into an elite survival strategy. But as a storytelling director, I must show you that this unique physical form functions as an unpredictable, silent predator, constructing invisible walls of physical danger behind the scenes of his most celebrated professional triumphs. The window trap. The systemic blade of tight, unyielding film sets triggered a frantic sudden drop from cinematic illusion into raw, claustrophobic panic during a high-stakes action shoot. While portraying a supernatural creature designed to bend effortlessly through a narrow window, the physics of his hyperflexible body betrayed him, causing him to become aggressively wedged and completely stuck between the narrow iron bars. A heart-stopping stunt sequence instantly degenerated into a volatile environment of an emergency rescue mission as crew members scrambled frantically to free him from the trap. He endured the raw agony of being physically locked inside an architectural cage, his real vulnerability exposed as the incident was quickly digested into permanent tabloid fodder. He chose to weaponize sharp, defensive humor by joking, "This isn't part of the script," converting a terrifying physical gridlock into a legendary blooper reel that producers ultimately kept to heighten the film's surprise. He conquered the trap to secure his niche, yet the constant physical risk leaves an unfillable void. Kim Goodman. Study the extreme clinical curvature of a human eyeball protruding an unbelievable 0.7 inches entirely out of its protective cranial socket. That shocking biological feat belongs to Kim Goodman, who stands wrapped in the golden illusion of a world-famous record holder. To the casual public wandering through a vibrant state fair, she looks like an overnight sensation displaying a spectacular, light-hearted party trick beneath dazzling stage lights. But a closer forensic analysis of her physical movement exposes a dark parallel universe of extreme anatomical vulnerability. The unblinking lenses of medical examiners capture the precise moment a simple, accidental bump from a crowding stranger shatters her pristine facade, triggering an instantaneous physical distortion where her eyes bulge out so far they look as though they will pop onto the floor. The sockets of panic. The systemic blade of public horror strikes instantly, transforming her immediate surroundings into a volatile environment of pure panic as terrified onlookers scream and flee from her sight. This sudden drop from an ordinary social interaction to a freaky public spectacle could easily inflict a heavy psychological ghost of isolation. Strangers look at her face and instantly perceive a monstrous defect, turning her daily existence into permanent tabloid fodder. Yet, inside this arena of raw agony, Kim weaponized her biological anomaly into an elite survival strategy of absolute confidence and optimism. She smiles calmly at the fleeing crowd and casually explains that her protruding eyes still function with perfect, normal accuracy, proudly reclaiming her condition as a personal superpower. She conquered the Guinness World Records to solidify her legacy, but the exhausting struggle to remain human in a world petrified by her form leaves an unfillable void. Francisco Domingo Joaquim. Study the polished, cold metal rim of a standard 500 milliliter aluminum soda can, its cylindrical frame completely swallowed horizontally within a human mouth without leaving a single millimeter of metal exposed outside the lips. This jaw-dropping anatomical anomaly belongs to Angolan native Francisco Domingo Joaquim, who stands wrapped in the golden illusion of an overnight internet sensation and a world record marvel. To the mainstream media watching him dominate the big mouth competition on national Italian television, he looks like a brilliant, light-hearted showman easily claiming cultural supremacy beneath dazzling stage lights. But a closer forensic look at his early life in Angola exposes a dark parallel universe of extreme economic isolation and digital exploitation, where a young boy had to record daring stunts on the streets just to escape the invisible walls of obscurity. The arena of the jaw. The systemic blade of public entertainment triggered a sharp sudden drop from an ordinary African life to an international spectacle, plunging his unique form into a volatile environment of commercial curiosity. The unblinking lenses of YouTube viewers watched with a mixture of awe and chilling speculation as he stuffed hard glass jars, coffee cups, and ceramic plates into his massive 17-centimeter jawbone, sending cold shivers down the spines of a global public. He endured the raw agony of extreme physical stretching, turning his body into permanent tabloid fodder for network ratings while elite adjudicators measured his face like a biological specimen. Francisco weaponized his record-shattering mouth into an elite survival strategy to secure financial independence and escape poverty. Yet the relentless commodification of his flesh left an unfillable void, proving that the world only wanted to celebrate him as a hyperextended anomaly. A dazzling, uncompromising world eagerly celebrating extraordinary physical feats under the bright spotlight, 17 exceptional figures, 17 great heights of individual uniqueness, and 17 sudden, catastrophic falls into logistical impasses or complete public isolation. All of this exposed an unshakable reality. These icons offered their everyday comforts, physical endurance, and unmasked truths to a world often unwilling to look beyond their differences, leaving an unfillable void that decades of media nostalgia have never truly filled. Now that the cameras have stopped rolling, the spotlights have faded, and a heavy silence hangs over the immortal paths they have carved in history, we need to look beyond the superficiality of viral internet videos and celebrate the authentic, flawed aspects of their true selves. Whose journey has left the deepest impression on you, or inspired you to walk with greater pride? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Share this story to break the silence, and subscribe as we continue to uncover the unseen truths about these daring legends.